Hello, Namaste, Salam everyone. My name is Chinky Saini and I'm the brand manager here at Vasitum. Today we have with us Blaze Arizanov. He is the board member at Stayuncle and founder at Inkblot Media. Hi Blaze, thank you for accepting our invite and coming here for the interview session. So Blaze, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Namaste, Salam Chinky. I, by the way, loved your multilingual sort of greetings, so just keep it that way. And howdy to the audience. Great to be sort of online chatting with all of you guys. My name is Blaze, and I'm the founder and nowadays board member of Stayuncle Hotels for Couples, for which I believe you have heard plenty in the past couple of years. And as well, the founder of Inkblot Media, which is a copywriting and ghostwriting agency with a task to sort of export the Stayuncle brand recipe onto other high-impact brand initiatives all around the world.
That's great. So, Blaze, I am all set to get a lot of information from you because I am a brand manager and I am learning each day. So I have like my list of questions all set for you. So the first question would be, what is your business model for Inkblot Media? What exactly it is?
Okay. So we know that there are plenty so-called content writing agencies and like a good number of copywriting agencies as well, in India especially and across the world too. Why I'm putting these two separate is because they are indeed different. Content writing and copywriting is like a world of difference between the both. And that's something I have to spend lots of time explaining to my prospective clients, especially if they come to India. Because when it comes to India, I need a sort of content writing agency. I'm like, do you need copywriting or content writing? He's like, yeah, I need someone to write me some blog posts and content for my website. And I was like, okay, so you need a content writing agency. And he said, what is the difference? And the difference is that content writers are simply mechanical writers who sort of write any sort of content on any topic to fill up a page. As in copywriters, on the other hand, they are storytellers by nature. So the way they work is that they take a product or service, any product, and they develop a narrative around that product. They develop a protagonist, which protagonist somehow uses that product naturally, so that they have sort of establishing a pure synthetic relationship between the product and the user by the medium of storytelling. So that's the difference. And that's why I've started Inkblot Media, because there are tons of content writing individuals as well as agencies, but not many good copywriting agency. So the task of the content writer is to fill up a page. The task of the copywriter is to sell the product he's writing about. So that's the sort of the subtle difference there between the two.
Absolutely. And these are kind of the services that Inkblot Media would offer. So I had this question in mind, like, say when you start a company, one big challenge that entrepreneurs face is obviously, like, besides securing a good funding, it would be to maintain a loyal customer base. So I would like to understand, like, when we have this in mind, that there are so many new entrants in the market, like there's every new startup entering the market in say 6 months. How do you go ahead and build that kind of a loyal customer base for yourself?
Okay, so most people, including me, wouldn't dub copywriting agency under startup because it's more of a service, and the service are not as cool nowadays. Everyone is into product, technology, IT product, IT startups, Google Chrome plugins, mobile apps, whatsoever they call a startup nowadays. So when I started Inkblot Media, I didn't start with the intention of establishing another startup. Because to be honest, I have sort of gotten disillusionized by the whole concept of startups, wherein a startup has gotten to mean like 9 out of 10 new companies who are basically starving, who are struggling to get money in the bank, and all of that. So that's why I didn't want to start a startup in the first place. I have started Inkblot Media with the intention of running the good old traditional cash cow type of a business. And copywriting agencies are traditionally the most sort of cash flow friendly businesses because, number one, you're selling a service which is not as easy to replicate as in the product, but still easy enough if you train a couple of good people around you to deliver as good as you can. And second, in the case of copywriting business, the rate of repeat business is just legendary, because copywriting service is such a sensitive kind of a thing to find like a good one nowadays, which is why every client that has tried you once, and if they're satisfied, they will come back again and again. So most copywriting agencies out there, they sort of 90% of their business comes from repeated businesses. They will get some like a 3 or 4 or 5, say theoretically, high ticket manufacturing companies, for example, and that's it. Whether they want to scale or not, beyond that point is their choice. Most choose not to scale, and they're sort of living still a happy, financially fulfilling kind of a life. So that's sort of my point. Inkblot Media is not a startup. It's a more of a traditional, good old business, the way the businesses used to be before the advent of so-called startups, basically.
So how is Inkblot Media different from its counterparts?
So first of all, Inkblot Media has the founder of Stayuncle as, again, a founder here, which means that prospective clients who has sort of praised the work that we did for Stayuncle now have the chance to experience that same level of excellence upon their brands as well. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I have sort of roped in my key writers who are handpicked, which means that my best writer is a guy, Native American, with 20 years of experience, with a bunch of books behind him, who has been doing copywriting and knows the intricacies of the business and the needs of the clients like he knows his own hair, basically. So these are the two sort of core differences. So the agency has me. It has one of the best writers, I would say, in Europe, to be more precise, in Eastern Europe. So it's like a domain we covered in 2 geographies. He knows the European market and clients. I know the South Asia one. So clients are in a way getting an agency with a global mindset. If they're a European company willing to expand their offering or just sort of start market experimenting in a market like South Asia, they still have the guy to do that, because we have our South Asia experience, which is reflected through me. We have our European experience, which is reflected through him. And we have a bunch of other guys who are ready to be engaged at a moment's notice. And the third difference is, of course, is that we deliver on all the traditional modes of content writing, which is like static content, like website content, then blog posts, then white books, then e-papers. But we take it even beyond by the fact that we also provide content for videos, for video script, for online courses. And to provide such kind of content, especially for online courses, which is a growing trend for many brands, it's a hell of a task to make it a good one. I know not of agency, for example, in South Asia, which has proven itself great at providing content for online courses, which is something that brands are increasingly demanding nowadays. But Inkblot Media has a team who is just great at that. So these are the sort of the 3 things that sets us apart.
That's really great. And so Blaze, I have stalked you, I've stalked your profile, and it says that you're probably the best copywriter in South Asia. And I've had a chance to go through your content, and it's amazing, like literally. I wanted to understand, how did you develop this kind of expertise in writing peppy conversational content?
Well, there's not an easy kind of an answer to this, because it's something part art, part science. And I will start with the scientific part, which is all about studying other people's work, studying your idol's work. And every copywriter must have 2 things, I believe. A list of idols he's studying consistently, which he says that these are the guys I want to write like. And the second is what it can be called anyway, what I call like my own copywriting, sort of a notebook. So I've spoken to many copywriters, but barely any of them has something which is like a big or small notebook, which is like a repository for his like phrases, punchlines, words in like this language or that language, which is just sad. I mean, copywriting is just not just to be a profession, it's also a passion with you. Such curated list of phrases, then that sort of tells me something that you're not as passionate. So now, as you see, I've moved to the passion part. Scientific part is like pretty straightforward. You study structure, you read a lot about the elements of style and structure when you write, and you study your idols. On the artistic part, or the more subjective part, it's like boils down to how to say it, more or less, boils down to sort of writing as a one thing you have to do every day. So I'm a believer that every person must have one thing that he has to do every day in order to call his day a successful one. We like brush our teeth, we have our breakfast, some of us go to the gym or to the swimming, go to work, watch a movie maybe. So these are like a whole bunch of things that we do, all of us, every day. But you have to pick up one thing that if you don't do it today, your days has been basically complete waste. So when it comes to to copywriters, to me, and I hope to all the other ones which call themselves good, writing 1.5 page of whatever should be one thing that they have to do it on a daily basis. And I've been sort of practicing this for years now. Some of my stuff, of course, go online and get published. Some of them don't, which is okay. But every day you have to write one particular thing on any topic. Even if you don't feel like writing, you just have to fill a page with complete random nonsense if necessary. So that's more on the subjective part. You just write. And of course, there is another aspect, which is your ability to spot nuances. Why do we say that great copywriters are great? They are great at one thing in particular. They are great at spotting the small ironic things around us, which usually we tend to overlook. That's why when you say, oh, you write great, most people want to say that, oh, I don't know how you can sort of remember to put all these things. I can, because it's a practice of mindfulness, which in India should be well known about phenomenon, basically. When you practice mindfulness, you're keen on observing the small cultural or natural things which people do in their daily lives, which they're not even aware about themselves. And then you sit and you write about these things, and they're like, oh yes, indeed, I'm like that only. I'm like that only, or I did that. But I haven't even noticed. It just goes without noticing. So a writer notices things that most people do on autopilot. The best copywriters are the strongest enemies of the autopilot mode of working and acting. They are present all throughout the day. They have this knack, this keen eye of noticing small things which others tend to overlook. And that's what makes them great and engaging writers, basically. It was like a bit long answer.
You know what, this answer actually reminded me of my school days when I used to keep a diary, and for all those words that I used to read or some new kind of vocab that I used to learn, I used to pen it down, and like basically anything, I would just maintain a diary and just write how my day was. So I think the kind of content that I'm putting up today is somewhere inspired by that habit only. So it's great to learn that, what I've done in the past has actually impacted how I write, how I jot down content in my presence. So
I think it's a great exercise. I mean, most of us have stopped doing that after our childhood, which you just said.
mm-hmm.
It's a much advised thing to do, not just to sort of practice your writing skills, but as a psychological exercise as well. I mean, when you write your thoughts down, you basically empty your mind and you're able to see things on a day-to-day basis more clearly. So highly advised thing to do. Like, guys, write your morning journals, even half a page, but just write something down on a daily basis. Yeah.
And I think it's also a good exercise for the content writers. Like, if anyone is leading a team of content writers, they should definitely tell the team to do something like this. Maybe this can help them to improve the kind of content that they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Blaze, I am sure you must have done like hundreds of marketing campaigns till now. So what has been your favorite marketing campaign?
Of course, there are a bunch of them. I've been sort of doing, as we know, this term is guerrilla marketing campaigns, the unusual methods, zero-cost methods of advertising yourself, basically. I've done that throughout my life, although most of the great ones are concentrated in my sort of previous venture, which is Stayuncle. And much of these moves have been sort of becoming global case studies. I would probably highlight, if I have to choose the best of the best, that will be the campaign which we did against women trafficking, which is a serious problem in India, unfortunately.
Sensitive topic.
So hotels for couples, and as we expect, people come to us with a demand, oftentimes not just to provide room, but also to provide escort partners. And this is something we adamantly refuse. That we said, we don't do that. We're only the guys who provide the space, and it ends there. But those queries kept on coming, which made us see the kind of a scale of problem we're sort of experiencing out there. So we had to do something about it, which is like beyond our like normal day-to-day business interest. So what we did, we created a fake website, and we listed like fake profiles with like fake names, fake descriptions. So it's basically like a site where you can just pick up any of the members inside and just book them for one night. It was as simple as that. And on the very first night, the very first 12 hours after the launch, we got amazing 1,200 registrations.
What?
For 12 hours, which is massive. And the very next day, the media started reporting about this fake website, which enables you to book girls for one night. And the very next day after that, international media started reporting about this phenomenon, starting by Thomson Reuters, who are the first one who captured the news from the international media, of course. So this kind of a news sort of circulated the world in the next 3 days. It became a massive marketing case study, which was great for exposure, zero cost exposure. But at the same time, it has addressed the problem we wanted it to be addressed and opened up a debate around it, which is the ultimate objective we wanted to achieve. So it was like two flies, as they say, with one stone. We got exposure, and we opened up a debate about the serious problem which should have been opened long ago. Mm-hmm. That's like if that's the one I can sort of choose right now.
That is actually mind-boggling. So, Blaze, what is exactly your go-to marketing strategy? Because we at Vasitum, we are trying to develop one for ourselves, and we do have a couple of pointers in mind. I would like to understand what exactly is like the go-to marketing strategy for Inkblot Media.
Right. So by that, we probably mean what are sort of our acquisition channels, more or less, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So Inkblot Media is fairly a new service. It's less than a year old. So we're sort of still fine-tuning our best performing acquisition channels. Although I would say every channel is the best channel as long as you're able to feed it with content and with the kind of structure of content which matches that channel. And when I chose these two criteria I've just mentioned, I would say that at the moment, LinkedIn has been our best performing marketing channel for getting client work for Inkblot Media. And which means that it's obvious that LinkedIn is a professional network. Business professionals come there to sort of solve business problems and interact with business professionals. That's an obvious thing. But also they come there to learn. And we give learning in the platform where they most expect to learn from. When it comes to Facebook, you're not there primarily to learn, but you're primarily to sort of entertain yourself, connect with your friends. But LinkedIn is supposed to be a platform for learning first. And that's why we said we have picked up the platform and we do the things on that platform which are most expected on that platform, which is learning. So LinkedIn, and we provide, like I invite all of you guys to sort of visit my LinkedIn profile and see with your own eyes that there is a new tip I'm sharing every single day, like 365 days. That would mean 365 tips on how to improve your content writing, how to improve your storytelling, how to recognize what good copy. So basically everything which a brand concerns itself with when it comes to copywriting, these are the kind of tips I share on LinkedIn every single day. So I've chosen my channel, and I've chosen the kind of content which is most suitable for that channel. Short content, couple of paragraphs, and hardcore, crisp, specific takeaway that you can take by reading without clicking anything else on it. So I would say I would sort of pick up LinkedIn as our only best performing marketing channel. Of course, we're working to sort of develop new ones, but this is still work in progress. If I'm to choose one which works, LinkedIn. And if you want to see how I do it on LinkedIn, you just have to visit my LinkedIn profile, see my posts, and you get the picture. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's well said. I would say the kind of content strategy that we are trying to chart out, it should vary according to the channel that we are targeting. So that's actually great. So Blaze, I am managing say a team of 4 right now, and I know how hard it is to manage people. And as an entrepreneur, I think it's like a heavy duty on your shoulders that you not only need to have a clear vision, but you also need your employees to envision the same. So how was
Mhm.
your experience building a team and sharing that vision with your team?
It's like a well-known secret nowadays that the best way to keep people motivated is to give them the freedom. You give people freedom, and that's the kind of that's where they get their motivation from. We at Inkblot Media do not have some sort of strict corporate process when it comes to like how much people have to deliver and under what circumstances, and whether they have to do it in office or anywhere else in the world. This is like we consider it old-fashioned. Instead, as I said, we just give them the freedom. And by freedom, we mean freedom to work from whenever they want, when they want, as long as they deliver in the deadline, and to be free to explore themselves with the kind of work they deliver. We do not give them like a specific brief every time and say them that you have to deliver as per this specification. We tend to avoid specification in the case of copywriting, basically. Just put up, just this is the project. This is the kind of, we say them, this is the kind of story that needs to be told about this product and about these users. This is all that we give them. And we say, feel free to pick up the length of that story, the format, the structure, the medium. So every person, every copywriter we work with is in a way his own little marketeer, because he doesn't only deliver content as such, which is like the limited seeing of this service. He delivers a story, and as I said, he picks up the nuances of that story himself, and then they come to us. We sort of fine-tune it a little bit, see if the medium matches the message. That's a very key thing. It's not just the message, but the medium itself, which defines how the message is perceived and whether it gets delivered. We see whether the medium is right, whether the structure is right. And then we go to the slightly more technical details, like does it make sense? Does it need restructuring? This is it's like called developmental editing in our circles, which means that we see whether it makes sense. So let me not go into the details that much. My point is, you keep people motivated by giving them the freedom. Freedom like in their like own circumstances of working, and freedom to deliver the kind of work they think is most suitable. As simple as that.
So you also gave me a hint to another question that I can ask you. It is, how do you hire a copywriter? Because you told me that you have like a good team of copywriters, some really, really great copywriters working for you. So how do you assess if a person is great or not?
Yesterday, I happened to chance upon CB Insights job requirement for COO, basically. CB Insights is a US-based data analytics company which provides data platform for startups or funding rounds, etc., etc. Some people have heard of it, I'm sure. So in that job posting, CB Insights had a very interesting line which strike me deeply. It says, we want to build a big but a small company, which is a beautiful line. And I thought about it like long afterwards. What does it mean in our case, for example? It means that you do not hire simply if you haven't found the person you would like to hire. Most companies out there have sort of a hiring plan or hiring objectives, like this quarter, next 3 months, I'll have to hire 5 more executives or 10 more executives or 15 programmers. That's not how we work at Inkblot Media. We only hire people not on the basis of pre-decided hiring objectives, but only when we find such person. And finding such person sometimes may take 6 months. So it will, maybe 6 months will pass before we decide to hire someone. And we're okay with that. That's what we mean by big but small company. You hire only when you have found the person that you need to hire, that he's so damn good that you cannot miss him. You do not hire on the basis of hiring plans. And someone will say, but what if that means that you cannot scale? That means that, what if you have like a bunch of new business people coming to you, but you have not enough writers, for example, to sort of comply to these needs? And I say, that's perfectly fine. We, with the current number of writers, will execute on as much as we can. If we cannot be on that point, we close the doors simply for new business for the time being. We keep on searching actively for writers, but our search is like sort of very leisure, very objective. We recognize a good writer who is passionate, and we can talk like a lot about how do we find them, like how do we determine passion. I've sort of mentioned some of it in your early questions about how do you write, and whether do you run a journal, or whether do you run your own copywriting notebook which contains phrases and punchlines and whatever. So these are all indicators of passion, basically. These are things that we look for, plus some more. So no hiring plan, no structure on the hiring. We hire the person only when we find them, and we are searching very leisurely. We're not searching proactively. As simple as that. It sounds weird, but that's how we want to structure the company. Big but small.
That's lovely. So, Blaze, I can see that you're very, very passionate about the work you do and obviously the content that you produce. So, are there any, say, people whom you follow, some sort of sites that you go to read more new content, the content that's engaging enough? So, are there any such sites that you follow in general?
Mm-hmm. Maybe the better question is, are there such books that I read? Because yeah, it's the trend nowadays that we consume most of our content online through websites. But I would recommend for aspiring copywriters to guys read more books. There is not a good writer who is not a voracious reader, who doesn't read like crazy. And you're looking at one of them right now. Like I know myself that my eyes often bulge from reading, that I should be going to bed by that time, but I'm not, because I've sort of hooked up myself to a read and I cannot stop reading it. So you have to read. That's the most important thing.
What would be your favorite books if you were to suggest a couple of books to read?
See, there are books which you have to read as a sort of to improve the craft itself. And there are books that you have to read to sort of to increase your vocabulary. So of course there is a recommended list of books that every copywriter should read. A couple of them being The Element of Style, and another one like being the everything which David Ogilvy has written. Then you have to study the work of the old masters. Like there is a collection of Robert Collier's letters, which is like a book from the 1930s, which you must read. So that's my point. There are like two categories of books. One are technical books, which you have to read to sort of become better at the technical aspect of this work. Then there's like the second half, which is like random choice of books, which you have to read to sort of expand your vocabulary, your phrases, your thinking. And I have no hardcore rule to recommend what to read here. It can be anything. In fact, that is the advice. Read broadly. Read all sorts of literature, because the broader you read, the more you're able to sort of respond to every client need, to every format of storytelling which is being requested from you. Like right now, I'm reading this huge book which was given to me by a friend.
Wow.
It's like how big it is. Book of short stories, which is like written in as a child book, which explains scientific phenomenon, like one page and a half for every scientific phenomenon out there, like why some people have blue eyes, why the sky is blue, why does it rain, why there are tides. So see, this is not exactly the staple food of a copywriter, but yet I'm reading it because it's fun and because I personally enjoy it. So read things that you enjoy. On the one hand, I can always provide the list of technical books which I'm studying on copywriting, which I'm reading over and over again. There's a definite list. But on the other side, read things that you just enjoy. And I cannot give you a list on that, because I have read like at least 50 books this year, which are completely random choice. Some of them I'm personally passionate about the topic. Some of them I read because they're just so well written. That's why, like, where's my Kindle? I'm just sort of deviating now, but I wanted to sort of highlight another example. I cannot find it. It's somewhere in my bag, maybe. So when I read on my Kindle device, for example, I take highlights and notes a lot. And I take my notes under two categories. The first one is knowledge. Like, this is like a beautiful piece of information which I need to highlight and keep as a note. The second type of highlight which I do is something I called BW, beautiful words, or BF, BP, beautiful phrase. So that's how I dub them, like a shortcut. BP or K, knowledge or beautiful phrase. So if you see my Kindle, you see like tons of highlights, but there is like one of these two under every highlight. I think it's like, it cannot be any simpler than that. Read. So the best copywriters are avid readers and avid note takers as well. I could not let myself miss that part. You read a lot and you take notes a lot. Best copywriters, when they read for their own pleasure of reading something beautifully written, but they also read for the technical purpose of upgrading themselves, and they do that by note taking. You can choose your own method to sort of how do you classify your notes. That's how I do it in my case. 2 main categories of notes. Every highlight goes under these categories, and it works for me. Feel free to develop a way. I mean, it's just experimentation. Yeah.
So this entire interview is going to be a huge, huge resource for people who are into copywriting or who want to do copywriting in near future. So there's like a lot of information that's coming in, and I'm learning so much with this interview. So Blaze, as a brand manager, like I've just started my journey into brand management, and you're like the expert in making a brand talk like a person. So how do you think I should go about working on my brand? How should I make my brand talk like a person? If there would be some tips that you could share with me.
So first of all, you are on your first step already is the right one. What does it mean? It means that you have the way you have dubbed the brand acting and feeling like a person. That's the first thing that brand builders should strive for. For most corporate brand managers I've met, they don't see brand building as such exercise. Most brand managers close their brands behind corporate sort of brand book, playbook. They say it has to look like this, it cannot look like that. Our brand can say this, our brand cannot say that. I'm like a complete anarchist on that front. What I preach is this: like, we live in the era of outsourcing, basically. We live in the era of crowdfunding. People are crowdfunding everything. They're crowdfunding their projects, their manuscript, their books, their everything, their artwork, basically. Why don't we let the same thing happen with brands? And that's what I did with Stayuncle. The most you can do about brand is to sort of establish a basic sort of a foundation, and then throw that brand out there into the wilderness, the way I put it, which means that let people crowdsource your brand, transform it into their own version. Like in the case of Stayuncle, we literally threw the brand out. This is the Stayuncle brand. This is like what it is in a nutshell. Feel free to upgrade and modify and mash it from that point onward. It's yours. But most people, when they hear that, they get super scared. They're like, no, our brand is like about 5 points. And they're like adamant about this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by doing that, they lock their brand behind iron gates. Their brand is like untouchable from that point. You cannot penetrate it. It's locked in a fortress. And that's not how you build brand nowadays. You have to let your brand out there and let people play with it. Most brand managers don't agree with that. I'm sort of like, I hope they will understand over the time. But this is the first thing. In fact, this is the second thing. The first thing is the very sort of phrase that you put: brand to be like a person. Most people, they don't know what does it mean to be a good brand. They don't have a definition, and when you don't have a definition, you do not know what to work, how to do it. But when you put up in this way that the brand has to feel like a person, then you have already half of your answer. So we said throw the brand out, first thing. Second thing, what does it mean to be a person? It means to talk openly, to have substance, to be authentic. As simple as that. People talk. People can be hurt. People have feelings. People have joys and sadnesses. So you have to make the brand feel like sort of make the same sort of manifestations. And most brand managers don't do that. So a person has emotion. Make your brand have emotion, and you do that by making your brand stand about something. Why people loved Stayuncle so much? It's because they saw how Stayuncle or Uncle as an entity stood for something. Whenever there is some, we know that our community used to know that Stayuncle is always like, we're always pitching something or raving about something. And that's what real people do. They rave, they get emotional, they cannot stand in the face of injustice. When you see injustice, you rave against it. Brands should be doing the same. But most brand managers don't want that. They just prefer to keep this neutral going narrative.
Exactly. I've seen like a lot of brands who...
Of everyone. You cannot be everyone's friend. No person is a friend of everyone else, basically. So that's why I'm saying, if you know what it means to be a person, then do the same thing to your brand. That's what we mean by brand as a person, basically.
Yeah, I've seen like a lot of brands who just want to be on the diplomatic side and want to keep conversation very straightforward and professional. I think that's why audiences do not really connect with their brand that much.
Exactly. And of course, there's a justification for that. The like large global brands sort of have to keep a sort of a more smoothened up, like a smooth corner kind of a narrative. But 90% out there of the companies and brands are not Fortune 500. So why do we act like them? That's a consequence of our education. You see, when it comes to sort of business schools, the kind of knowledge they teach us about business comes from Fortune 500 companies. It's a different kind of company altogether. But we're taught to think like these companies all do. By all means, we'll probably never have such company. Our companies are going to be like mostly small, mid-sized, but barely 500. So why do we emulate 500 Fortune 500 companies when we are a small company? What do you have to lose when you're small? You have to show some voice. You have to something to sort of carry about. So my advice is like, unless you're Fortune 500, in which case my advice is like a risky one. Unless you're Fortune 500, have a voice, stand for something. Forget this sort of diplomacy and making everyone please. That's just impossible.
So Blaze, I have this one question in my mind. So why did you go for entrepreneurship and not working for another company?
Funny question. So I think I would have had a different answer if you would have asked me a couple of years ago. And now, I would let me just stick to my answer now. Why I'm doing this, why I'm into entrepreneurship is basically, it's because I've already had the taste of it. As we know, Stayuncle is my first company. So that's why I say, why I started Stayuncle is a different story. But why am I starting a company now? It's because I had a taste of it. And what I mean by the taste, it means the freedom that comes with it, the independence, but also the responsibility. For most people, being accountable is a very hard thing. For some, it's not. I love being accountable. I love being responsible for my own destiny. And most of all, I love being able to execute my ideas fast without waiting for approvals from like 5 layers of bureaucracy above me. Life is too short for that. So when you're small, when you're independent, you can experiment 10 times as faster the way you could if you have sort of worked in a structured Fortune 500 company, for example. As simple as that.
Blaze, it was great talking to you. This has been one of my favorite sessions that I've done. So just to close it out, if you were to say something about, say, Inkblot Media, what would that be? Like, explain it out to our audience.
Right. So I would summarize the way I've started at the beginning. Like, learn the difference between content writing and copywriting. In India, these are synonymous. They are not. If you don't know the difference, you get what you ask for. When you go out there, decide what you look. Content writing agency versus copywriting agency. I've already said what is content writing, and I've said what is copywriting. I won't repeat myself. That's my final message. Know what you ask for, and just go for that.
Thank you so much, Blaze. Thank you so much for your time, and it was lovely talking to you.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll be back with another session with another professional, and we will just get candid with them. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.